You mentioned your GB teammates, and I think it's only right we go on to that 1A trip in Budapest, where obviously GB got promoted the year before in Belfast, and then you made your senior debut. What was that week like? And then what was the day of the Hunger Game? Because we all three was the trip we was on, and we've got the stories. But what was it from a player's perspective? Going into that trip, going, let's just stay up, and then going, actually, we can join the big boys now.
All right. I've got to be careful what I say. That's all. For me, it was a complete surprise, first of all. When you kind of go to GB camp, the training camp before the tournaments, you kind of have a very good feeling of who's going to be picked and who's not. And you know, I looked at you kind of look at when the England team announced the England squad for the next internationals, you kind of look at it and go, yeah, these are the mainstays, and then these guys are the fringe players. That there's 3 or 4 spots that chop and change. And the decor of being the GB decor was phenomenal at the time. And I kind of looked at it going, you know, I'm probably not going to make the team, but I'll do what I can on the ice and kind of give my best shot. And I think we played Lithuania in Coventry. So we played them in Milton Keynes and then in Coventry the next night. I didn't play the Milton Keynes game, but I played the Coventry game. And it was probably my worst game of the season. But without a shadow of a doubt, it was my worst game of the season. I was absolutely terrible. I think I was -4. Got dangled twice, which both led to goals, and 2-on-1, which I was basically a traffic pylon. Might as well not have been on the ice. But Evan Mosey took a hit late on in the second period, I think it was, which ended up with him unfortunately breaking his leg. And I get on really well with Evan. He's a great guy. And while we were playing, nobody knew what had happened. Everyone just thought it was kind of like, oh, he's hurt his leg, he'll be fine, like he'll be going on the trip. And then after the game, it kind of everyone finds out that no, he's broken his leg. It's pretty bad. He's going to be out for 3 or 4 months. So I get called into the meeting with Kiefer, Corey, and Pete, and we kind of sat there, and Corey was like, "How do you think you played tonight?" And I was like, "To be honest, I think I played terrible. I was awful. Made way too many mistakes. Did this, that, and the other." And he went, "Yeah, I agree with that." And the way that Corey told me I'd made the team, he just said, "Well, I'm looking forward to working with you over the next 2 weeks." Now, that's not how you expect to be told you made the national team for the first time. I was expecting it to be, "Yeah, you're coming with us, you're in." Kind of flippantly said, "Oh, yeah, looking forward to working with you over the next 2 weeks." So I kind of sat there and didn't respond. And he went, and I was like, "No, I'm just trying to process what you said. So am I coming to Hungary?" So obviously I got picked, and Evan Mosey kind of unfortunately missed out because the both. I think we played Slovenia first, which at the time I was kind of worried about Slovenia because Kopitar might have been coming. How things did against the Golden Knights that year. Obviously, LA ended up getting swept, but his dad didn't leave. So Kopitar's dad is the coach of Slovenia national team, but he didn't leave him a roster spot for Kopitar to come over and play. So you know that would have, I mean, a player of Kopitar's caliber, that would have completely changed the tournament. But we kind of scraped through against Slovenia, from what I remember. We probably shouldn't have won, but somehow did. And that was kind of, everyone was elated. You know, those World Championship groups, you win one game, you stay up. So we were kind of like, job's done. Great. And then someone kind of said, you know, well, we've won one game, why don't we go and win another? And that was kind of where that Dare to Dream came from. It was like, well, we won one, why not another? And then I think we beat, I think it was Italy next, and it was kind of, okay, we've won 2, why not win another? And it was an interesting trip. You know, I don't sugarcoat how the role I played. That I had 7 shifts in the entire tournament. So by no means was I a integral part of why we got promoted. You know, I wasn't playing 20 minutes a night or anything like that. I played 7 shifts all tournament. But it was Liam Kirk's first tournament as well. So he, at the start of the tournament, I was the 7th D-man. He was the 13th forward. So we'd kind of sit as the Mikey Cole, my housemate. He says grocery sticks. You know, we're dividing the forwards and the D, so with a grocery stick in the middle. And we'd just chat away. We'd watch the game, chat away. When guys come off, we say, "Hey, good shift, like good pass, good play, good shot, good stick, whatever it is that happened on the ice." And then we'd go back to having our conversation. I think we covered pretty much every aspect of life over the 5 games, just chatting away. And I remember Ben O'Connor pulling me aside in I think it was the first or second game. And he said, "Look, I know you're not playing much, but you know what you're doing, like being positive, like keep doing that, like it's going to help us." And I remember turning around, and I absolutely 100% joking at the time, and I said, "Hey, if we win a gold medal, I get one too." And then obviously the Italy game, I think we had 15 shots on net and somehow scored 5 goals, including Ben O'Connor scoring from the red line through the goalie's 5 hole somehow. We obviously got absolutely pummeled by Kazakhstan. And then, yeah, we were warming up. That last day was the most bizarre day. I think Italy played Slovenia, but both of them needed to win in regulation to get promoted or have a chance of promotion. So they were tying the game at 3-all or 4-all. And I think Italy pulled their goalie first because they had the puck. They're coming up the ice with the puck. Slovenia turned them over, and Slovenia's goalie goes to the bench. So it's 6-on-6, no goalies. And we're all watching this going, like, what is going on? Like, yeah, we know you've got to score, but why have you both pulled your goalies? Like, this is insane. And then the Slovenia D-man threw a pizza straight up the middle to the Italian player who put it in the back of the net. And obviously knowing that I've like I said, I don't sugarcoat it. I knew I wasn't going to play much, if at all, in the Hungary game. So from my perspective, I was kind of like behind the scenes experience as a fan. I get to see everything that's going on. And, you know, Manchester did one this year. We had a fan in the room who, you know, was in for the coaches' talks and then on the bench. And that was me. I was just a fan watching the game from the bench. And yeah, it was an absolutely packed out arena. I don't think there was a spare seat going, and the GB fans were all the way up in the top corner. I think they went 2-0 up, and Dowdy, I think, just turned and fired one in. But I think what most people forget is when it was 2-1, they also had a penalty shot, which Bouncy made a fantastic save on. And yeah, I mean, it was. I don't think there's been a moment in my career where it's, you know, when Farmer somehow scored that goal. I don't think there's been a moment of that just sheer elation. You know, it's just unbelievable. Because that game, if we went to overtime, I think we finished 4th. So we've gone from finishing 4th to finishing 1st with 1 goal, which was just how insane that group was. Everyone was beating everyone, and obviously the final buzzer goes for we tied the game. They hit the bar after we scored to make it 2-all. You know, they had a ozone face off. They win the face off and bring it off the bar. So yeah, obviously half the guys jump on and start celebrating. And remember sitting on the bench and everyone going, "Just pull Bouncy. Let them win in overtime. We don't care. We've won the gold medal. Just pull Bouncy. We'll go 4-3. Let them win." But obviously, you know, we kind of made the decision as a group that Bouncy had played lights out all tournament and kind of wanted him to get him another win. So yeah, I mean, it was outrageous. You look at that group, there was absolutely no way we should have got promoted. Playing against an Italy team which GB haven't beaten in God knows how many years, Kazakhstan, who are one of the top hockey nations, Slovenia, who had no right being in that group, only got relegated because Kopitar didn't go to World Championships. Hungary hosting is always playing the host nation. I mean, that stadium was 8,000, 9,000 fans, and there wasn't a single seat going. And that, to be fair to the Hungarian fans, they didn't stop making noise all the way through, even when we equalised. I think there was about 5 seconds where you could hear a pin drop, and then they were back in full voice supporting their team. So, yeah, I mean, it was an outrageous tournament, especially to be a part of, however much a part of it I was. And personally, as one of the guys who wasn't really skating the pre-game skates or optional skates, it was me and Liam Kirk, Jackson Whistle, and Thomas Murdy, and Kiefer and Corey. So me and Kirky were getting coached one-to-one by Kirky by Kiefer, me by Corey, and both Kiefer and Corey's were great players in their own rights, and that kind of one-to-one coaching obviously helped both of us massively. And while I didn't quite reach the heights of Liam Kirk, it still helped me develop my game. And I loved every minute I was over there. And Ollie Betteridge at the time was one of my best mates, so rooming with him, which was great. And he had a fantastic tournament. I think that was kind of his breakthrough tournament, and seeing him play so well was kind of heartwarming for me. I've known him since he was 17, and kind of seeing him come up and telling him all the time that he's going to be a mainstay for Team GB, and made it. So that was quite a nice moment as well. So yeah, I mean, it was like you said, I think everyone just expected us to scrape staying up, and then to go through and win, but also win 4 out of 5 games. And remember, the Italians came on the ice and they were celebrating with us. They wanted pictures with us, and one of us kind of asked him, like, why are you so excited? He's like, oh, we got 10 grand bonus for getting promoted. And we're like, oh, did you? So yeah, it was brilliant. Like I think everyone involved in that tournament, whether they played a big role or a small role, kind of have fond memories. And yeah, I mean, it was definitely one of the highlights of my career. It's always kind of sitting fondly, and got my so what GB do is if it's your first time playing for GB, you get a jersey. And obviously we're going to the rink before the Hungary game, and Andy Buxton, the manager, came up to me and said, oh, you need to give that jersey back. And I was kind of like, well, why? And he was like, well, if we win tonight, everyone gets a jersey because we won the gold medal. So that's the other rule. If you win a gold medal, you get a jersey. If it's your first time playing, you get a jersey. And I was kind of like, yeah, sure, okay, like, take it back. And then obviously he gave it back to me when we won the gold medal. So it was, yeah, I mean, it's obviously a great memory, as you probably tell from me retelling the stories. And but it's that kind of dare to dream that is kind of the motto of the GB team, kind of stemmed from that tournament. Is we beat Slovenia, who I think were ranked first in the tournament as well, having come down the year before. And we kind of looked at it going, everyone's going to take us lightly. We're the new boys in the group. We're the guys that are expected to go down. I think Italy played their 3rd string goalie against us. And it was kind of, we've got the talent in this team to win games. If they're going to take us lightly, well, more for them, we'll go out and play our style. And I think Mark Richardson, who I absolutely love, I think he's probably one of the best British D-men. Well, definitely the best British D-man currently, if not one of the best of all time. He's must have blocked something like 150 shots that tournament. So that was the kind of buy-in from the guys. And yeah, just to be a part of it was really something special.
I'm with you. I've watched that Farmer goal many times. I still don't know how the hell that goes in. As a goalie myself, I'm like, what's he done for that to just get through? It doesn't defy logic, but I don't care. Probably like you all are on the bench. And you say Liam's not done too bad. No, he's not done too bad at all. But you say you only had seven or eight shifts, but played as much a part in terms of the morale side of things. And you go through that team that, Ben O'Connor got a contract in the KHL from that tournament. Okay, it was cancelled because of internal reasons at his club, but there was a few players from that tournament that really had standout tournaments that got them to a next step of their career. So I suppose having a view of that, and then seeing them do well in Latvia for the COVID tournament, and then obviously in Finland. How was it? How was that feeling watching them going? That you actually, as much as you say, weren't a big part, but a part played nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always a case of, when you're not picked for a team that you have been a part of, I think there's always kind of a sour taste left. I'll be entirely honest, I was bitterly disappointed not even to be invited to camp that year. I won't go into those reasons because I'd be on here for another 3 hours. So yeah, I mean, I was bitterly disappointed, and I was actually in New Zealand that first year that they played at World Championships, and I remember kind of looking at their results, and I think it came down that they lost every single game quite substantially, and I remember kind of sitting there going, I don't really know how I feel. And that's kind of weird, I'm British. I obviously want to see every British sports team do well, and I was kind of sat there going, I don't know if I want them to get relegated because I'm not a part of the team, or I want them to stay up because I know the guys. And I remember, it was they played at something like 4 a.m. New Zealand time, so I didn't get to watch the game. But I remember waking up and seeing Ben Davies' goal everywhere. Yeah, everyone had retweeted it, everyone had liked it. And I remember just being so happy that they had won and stayed up. And I kind of felt relieved that I wasn't so bitter and twisted about not making the team that I didn't want them to stay up. So I didn't know, genuinely didn't know whether I wanted them to stay up or not. And then obviously saw Benny score that goal, and I was just so happy for all of them. And I kind of valued myself as a person a little bit more. Like if I'd been disappointed that they stayed up, I think I would have been a little bit disappointed in myself. So, yeah, I mean, going from that first tournament where I think, we kind of talked about it in Hungary, because the groups get formed pretty quickly, and kind of looking at it going, Denmark and France are the two games that are our best chance of staying up. And then I think they played Denmark third or fourth, and it was something like 8-2 or 10-2. And I was kind of going, oh, that's not good. Like, they're one of the teams that they targeted to beat to stay up. And then obviously, not just beating France, but the way they beat France. So I think they went 3-0 down and came back. And, it's kind of one of those moments which is like, you could make a movie out of it and still probably wouldn't believe that it happened. It's one of those where you're like, oh, this is just a nice movie. Whereas actually it's. So no, I'm really happy for them. And then obviously they kind of went from strength to strength over the next kind of 2 years. And then obviously what happened last year. And but no, I think I think GB have got a great chance to get promoted this year. With obviously Russia and Belarus not playing, that's two very strong hockey nations not playing, and the group in Nottingham is not the strongest 1A group that you've ever seen. There's teams that you wouldn't expect to be there. But again, teams probably thought that about us going to Hungary. What the hell are GB doing in Group 1A with a chance to get promoted to the World Championship? So, yeah, I mean, I hope the guys obviously win the group. I think it would be the absolute perfect send-off for Jonah Phillips as well. It's obviously going to be his last ever GB game, last ever game of ice hockey. So I obviously hope that he gets to lift another trophy in what's been probably one of the most illustrious careers in this country. And lifting it for his country would be just the absolute perfect send-off for him. And I obviously hope they win, and I hope they don't take anyone for granted like teams took us for granted in Hungary.
Before I carry on with a couple more questions, I've just noticed in the time. Are you okay for time? We've got like 3 more sections. Are you okay for time, or?
I'm nocturnal anyway, so.
Okay, fair enough. Right. That's what I was going to say now. Right. Do you have any difficult question, I suppose, but do you have any inspirations to get back into the GB setup, or do you think that time may have gone, sadly?
Yeah, it's difficult to kind of answer that. Like, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that went on from my last year in Glasgow that obviously I'm not going to go into because I'm still playing. Might have a reveal all interview with someone when I'm finished, but I mean, it's every British sports person's dream to represent their country, and I'm no different in that. Of course, I would love to go and pull a GB jersey on again, and if I was ever asked to go to camp or if I was asked to play for the GB team, there's absolutely no shadow of doubt in my mind that I would 100% jump at the chance. Do I think I will be asked in the current climate? No. And my opinion on it is kind of, for whatever reasons, if the coaches don't think I'm good enough, then that's fine. That's their opinion. That's their prerogative as coach. The greatest example of that is Miracle on Ice. He cut he didn't take any of the best players and won the gold medal at the Olympics. So am I disappointed when GB comes around every year and I don't make the team? Obviously, absolutely, I am. I think I can bring something that can contribute to GB being better, but obviously the coaches don't agree with me on that, and that's absolutely fine. You're going to have coaches that don't necessarily like your style of play, don't necessarily just don't necessarily think you fit in or whatever it is, and I've got no problems with that aspect of things. I do have a problem with coaches saying that I'm uncoachable, because I'm not. I'm always very respectful to my coaches. I disagree with my coaches, absolutely. I mean, think of any other walk of life. Have any of you had a job where you haven't disagreed with your manager once? No, of course not. Happens in every walk of life, and I think that's just man management skills and kind of, to put it this way, Finner laughed for about 5 minutes when I told him that I was called uncoachable by my previous coach. So I pride myself on being a professional, acting professionally. Much like this answer, I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus or say anything that people can't respond to. I'm not that type of person, but yeah, I mean, obviously I want to play for Team GB again, without being disrespectful to any of the guys by any means. I think every player that plays for GB deserves to be there. Do I think that I'm better than a couple of them? Yeah, probably, but the coaching group has decided not, and I'm absolutely fine with that, genuinely. I'm kind of over the stage where I was bitter about it and swearing and screaming in my room and calling my mum and saying, why aren't I being picked? And I'm old enough now where I feel like I've achieved a lot in my career. I feel like I've done quite a bit to change ice hockey for the better, and while I would love to play for GB, that's not the be all and end all of my life anymore. And I'm not a young 21-year-old where that's I've got a now and got my own flat and thinking about what I'm going to be doing after ice hockey's done. So life priorities have changed slightly. I'm more about kind of enjoying my time. I've been unfortunate to have quite a few injuries over the last couple of years, whereas in the early part of my career, I very rarely got injured. So it's kind of, especially with COVID, it's kind of brought everything into perspective that things could stop so quickly that actually you need to be ready for real life as well. And I'm definitely not ready for real life. So, yeah, I mean, but if I was asked to go to camp or if I was asked to play, I mean, there's no other answer. But yes, everyone wants to represent their country whenever they get the opportunity to. So I just don't necessarily think that's going to happen with the current climate.
Fair enough. I respect your answer there, mate.
Very political one, that one.
Yeah, but Zach, you're being honest, and obviously you can't say too much. And some players, when they're on podcasts, they just brush over stuff. Obviously, there's stuff going on. You can't talk about it, but you have said what you needed to say. So I admire that, mate. Just want to touch on stuff that's happened in your life. You've been a massive supporter of the LGBTQ community, and you're probably the first person that I know that has come out in the Elite League. How's it been for you as a process, and how's life been? You know, I don't. It's not something that I've ever had dealings with, so I would like you to talk about it if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. I mean, life's been great. You know, I think Jared Allen kind of summed it up when he was interviewed about it, about me coming out when we played together, and he said, you know, he's just so much happier. He comes to the rink with a smile on his face every day. So yeah, I mean, life's great. I've got absolutely no complaints. My full-time job is playing a child's game for I get paid for it. I've got absolutely no complaints. I've got a very loving family, very accepting family, very accepting and loving friends, and a great group of guys on my team that we all get on really well. And you know, won't get into my love life too much, but yeah, no. I mean,
if you want, Zach, it's fine.
No, I don't think.
I'm joking.
So, but no, I mean, it was obviously daunting, like you said. I think I'm still the only professional bisexual hockey player, male hockey player, anyway. I know Luke Prokop's come out as gay since in the NHL, and that's absolutely fantastic that he's had the kind of courage and strength to do that, especially considering everything that's going on this year with the NHL. So yeah, I mean, kind of changed. I actually showed my partner my first ever interview in Glasgow when I went up as a 19-year-old, and I remember we went to so I met them in the rink, and we went to where we were doing the interview, and I don't know why, but I could not stop laughing. I just couldn't stop laughing. I was just chuckling, like giggling, smiling, and the start of the interview, I'm just stood there laughing. Nobody said anything. I'm just stood there laughing. So to kind of go from that like young 19-year-old to someone now, you know, being on pretty much every news outlet that you can think of, and I don't think a 19-year-old version of me could have handled that. I think I would have very much gone into my shell and kind of been a shadow of who I was. And you know, the biggest thing I get asked is, do I have any regrets? And I always say no. And then they say, well, do you wish you'd come out earlier? And again, I say no, because I wasn't ready. I wouldn't have been able to handle that scrutiny or handle that pressure of kind of being, you know, whether I want to or not. I was always going to become a spokesperson for LGBT people in hockey. I think I've handled myself well. I don't think I've said too many things that are completely ridiculous or stupid. But no, I think the Elite League have kind of, I know Luke very well, who runs the social media with the Elite League, and met with him in summer, and he said very plainly, you know, I said to the owners, he is not becoming a poster boy for Pride Nights. And you know, when I talked to Finner about it, I'm still unsure how everyone knew. So I was dating a guy in that year from kind of November time, and kind of slowly dribs and drabs told my teammates, and then told my family at Christmas, and then I'll actually tell this story because Peaks will love it. So we played against Nottingham, and it was very strange. Like hockey has always been a release. So from when I played in Slough, my dad's mum was very ill, and it was affecting me on the ice. And Adam Greener came over to me during practice one day and said, "What's up?" And I said, "Oh, so my grandma's ill, doesn't have long left." And he said, "When you're on the ice, everything else that is happening in your life you can forget about for 2 hours. You're just on the ice with your mates playing a sport you love." And that had travelled, like, I've kept that with me. You know, I can't remember the full quote, but there's a fantastic quote by an NHLer. You know, you forget the argument you had with your partner, you forget the speeding ticket you had on the way to the rink. You're on the ice, and you're just free for however long you're on the ice for. And we went and played in Nottingham, on a Wednesday, and we lost 2-0, and I had 2 assists for Nottingham. I think I set out a one-timer for one of their D men and passed it back door for their second goal. So it was that kind of a night where everything went wrong. And we skated on the Thursday, obviously, and Finner came over to me before the first drill, and he kind of went, "Oh, Sully, you should be good to go tomorrow, considering you didn't play in Nottingham yesterday." And I kind of went, "Yeah, I can't even say anything to that. You're absolutely spot on." So I kind of talked to Josh Greaves, my best friend, and I said, "I need to talk to you about something." And he was going to call me on the Friday, but to sum our friendship up, he was going to call him on the Friday, and we ended up talking to each other about it over text message. And his response was kind of like, "Yeah, I kind of guessed." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then we played Glasgow on the Friday, and Peaks was obviously playing there, and it was my first year since I'd left, so I knew quite a lot of the guys there, and my parents were coming, and everyone was kind of there. And I kind of text Peaks while he was on the bus on the way down. I was like, "Hey, can I talk to you after the game?" And I still think to this day he thought I was going to ask him something about my flat, because he's renting my flat from me. So after the game, I kind of said to him, like, "Hey, can I talk to you?" And kind of told him, and I remember saying to him, because this is the biggest fear is losing your friends and family, losing your teammates. And the biggest problem straight people have playing with non-straight people is, oh, they fancy me. They're gay, I'm a man, therefore they fancy me, which is clearly how it works. And I remember saying to Pete, "Don't worry, I don't fancy you. I don't have a crush on you." And Pete turned around and went, "Why not? I'm a good-looking guy. Why don't you have a crush on me?" Which was kind of like, at the time, I thought it was just, something he'd say to kind of alleviate the tension and kind of make me relax a little bit. And then we had Matt Hayward's testimonial up in Glasgow, so I drove up with Finner, and we obviously went out to celebrate him and XYZ. And he came up to me randomly in the bar, and Peaks is one of my best friends. He came up to me in the bar and goes, "So why don't you have a crush on me? What's wrong with me?" So it genuinely affected him. That was kind of a highlight of it. And kind of after that, it was kind of, I told Josh and I told Peaks, and they, like, from my 4th year in Glasgow, our coach wouldn't let us drink at fan events, wouldn't let us drink on the bus back from games, and it was all very, very strict. So as hockey players, our natural reaction was to go out at every single opportunity we could. So I think over the course of the season, we went out something like 200 times together, just the 3 of us, which even as hockey players is pretty good going. So yeah, we kind of bonded over that year, and I kind of sat there and went, these are the 2 people that know me the best. I'd lived with Peaks the year before, and we kind of talked about it a little bit, because he had a friend from back home that came out as gay when he was younger, and I kind of said, these are the 2 people on the planet that probably know me the best. They haven't judged me, so what right does anyone else have to? And from then on, it was all kind of not clean sailing, but it was kind of like I just didn't care. I remember we played Sheffield on the Saturday, and we played absolutely lights out and still lost 4-2 somehow. And everyone's kind of having that talk after a game, and you're like, if we play like that, we'll be fine, blah 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 blah. And I told Tyson Fawcett and Cameron Critchlow on my team, because I was living with them here, and they kind of both looked at me at the same time, was like, do it. So I kind of stood up and was like, "Look, I don't want you guys to hear from social media, like I'm going to come out as bisexual tomorrow, and I'd really appreciate it if I had your support, like obviously blah 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 blah." And I spoke to Finner before the game. I spoke to Mike Moran, our assistant coach, first, and kind of told him I was going to tweet, and then said, "You need to talk to Finner." And I went, "I know, but I don't know how." And Mike turned around and went, "He knows. He doesn't know why you haven't spoke to him yet." So I think Finner was kind of, and I remember him saying, "I don't know why you didn't feel like you can talk to me." So I think Finner was a little bit hurt I didn't go to him earlier. And I remember him saying to me, if it, you're probably going to have a lot of interviews because of this. And I was kind of, yeah, I know, not really what I look forward to. And he just said, if it ever gets too much, just let me know, and I'll just tell them no. And so he kind of took a lot of pressure off me by saying that. It wasn't me saying no. It was, he said, we'll say from the club standpoint, like, no, he's not allowed to do any more interviews. So kind of took that pressure off me that if it did all get too much, he would step in as a club and go, no, we're not giving our players to BBC or ITV anymore. So a lot of pressure was taken off me, and the guys were absolutely phenomenal. Like I remember coming in on the Sunday, I put it in my drafts I didn't sleep when we got back from Sheffield. I put it in my drafts and kind of came in the main house, pressed send, and just kind of threw my phone away. And then everything kind of blew up, and everyone was kind of retweeting and everything. And I remember Critch coming out of the room that I'm currently in. This was his bedroom, and come out and he's like, "Are you all right?" And I was like, "I think I need a hug." And he just came over, gave me a big hug, and we carried on watching. I think we were watching. We were our fourth time through Brooklyn Nine-Nine by that point. So, but yeah, I mean, got to the rink and a few guys came over to me and said, "Good job, like really proud of you," and stuff like that. And then it was just business as normal. We were playing Dundee. We needed to win, and it was huge for our playoff push. Obviously, nobody knew it was going to get cancelled. It was a massive game for our playoff push, and for me, that was just the perfect reaction. There wasn't a big fanfare or a big, obviously the outside world looking in there was, but from inside the dressing room, it was just kind of like, okay, business as normal. And that was kind of, for me, that was them saying, you're still the same person, same teammate, same guy. We don't judge you any differently. And every hockey player has the kind of pre-game rituals. I always leave the room early, and I remember Dallas Earhart coming up to me. He was our captain at the time, and he kind of said, the boys want you to do the puck drop. I was kind of like, why? And he's like, well, it's your night. Like, we want you to be able to remember this. And I'm like, so they want me to do the puck drop? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, do I have to? And he's like, yeah, you're doing the puck drop. I'm like, all right, I'll do the puck drop. And like the magnitude of that game was how late it was in the year. I know it was on January, but it was still quite late on in the year. It was whoever kind of won that game between us and Dundee was making playoffs. And Mark Quard came over for the puck drop and kind of stood there and said, I'm really proud of you. Like, the Dundee guys all kind of tapped their sticks, and it was getting emotional thinking about it. Just the magnitude of the game and the reaction from the Dundee guys, and Matt Marquardt especially, was just kind of overwhelming. Like, it was, they could have easily come into that game and gone, this is a playoff push game, and they took the time before the game to kind of celebrate what I'd done, which was really nice. And I think anyone that knows me knows that I don't really like the media spotlight. I don't particularly like doing interviews or anything like that. So I had a lot of support, and all the guys, like, obviously we go to the gym after practice, but sometimes I had an interview or a podcast to go on, and Finna kind of said, do what you need to do. If you need to do a podcast or miss a gym or miss practice, let me know. So yeah, it was a really special time. Like, I think the guys really bought into how kind of monumental it was. I think Finna said in one of his interviews that I was trailblazing for other hockey players, and that's all that it was ever for. It wasn't for me. Like, I'm very happy with my career. Like, when you went through it, this is my 9th year in Glasgow. I've got a gold medal with GB. I've won things in the league below. I've won the Garden Conference 3 times. I've had a career that is better than a lot of people, and it was kind of an opportunity. However good Mark Richardson is, however good Ben O'Connor is, however good Jonah Phillips is, in 10 years' time, those names won't be talked about anymore. They've moved on, and the next generation has come through, and we have 15 years, 20 years, if we're extremely lucky to play a sport that we're extremely lucky to be playing. And it was just kind of a chance to make a difference in the world. And I always look at it a case of, if I was 15 years old and there was a bisexual hockey player playing in the top league in the country, it would have been so much easier for me. So, you know, hopefully it's kind of done some good, and some hockey players can kind of feel more comfortable with themselves if they're going through the same kind of thing. And I think the biggest change was it changed the conversation from, you know, what if we have an LGBT hockey player to we have an LGBT hockey player. And I think that kind of, you know, it's not a hypothetical question anymore of how to make sport more inclusive for LGBT, not just LGBT hockey players. It's, you know, it's kind of joked about a little bit that hockey is a rich white man's sport. I think you can count on one hand the number of hockey players who have come to this league who were black. So there's a lot of work to be done in all of men's sports to become more inclusive, but hockey as well. And it kind of changed that question from, you know, what would we do if a hockey player who was LGBT was in our league, to, okay, there is. Now we need to actually do some work. And I think that was massive. And you know, the support from the league, I think every single club tweeted me, and I went on. I mean, it was a whirlwind year. I woke up on the Monday, went out obviously because I needed to do something other than sit at home and twiddle my thumbs, and woke up at about 10 o'clock the next day, and Finner had said, you know, you're going to have interviews, and he hadn't called me. So I was like, okay, I've got away with no interviews. This is fantastic. And as I thought that, Ryan Finnerty's calling me. I was like, oh, okay. And he goes, yeah, so BBC want you in Media City at this time for 3 interviews, and ITV want you at this time for 1 interview. I was like, oh, okay. So, you know, BBC, ITV, Sky Sports, I took over NHL's Instagram story, went on NHL on NBC Live, CNN. So, and it wasn't a case of, you know, people are going to know my name. Like, I couldn't really care less. I'm a hockey player. I'm a team guy first. It was more a case of the more people wanted to talk to me, the louder the message would get, and that was really important to me, especially having gone through, like I said in my tweet, like a lot of mental health problems with it. And yeah, I think it was something that needed to be done. I've absolutely no regrets, and now I'm kind of at a point where if there is a player in the league that has a problem with it, you know, it's their problem, not mine. I am who I am. I have absolutely nothing to apologise for. And if someone has a problem with me, that's their problem, not mine. And you know, there have been a couple of incidents over the last couple of years which were probably not handled too hotly by the league, but you know, it's all part of the learning process. And
can we go into that slightly, Zach? Not in the sense of some incidents that happened, but the league is we do a Pride weekend now, and we spoke on the pod before. Fantastic, we're raising awareness. But do you think it is a little bit of a cash cow for the league, and should they be doing more? I don't want you to throw anyone under the bus. I just would want your honest opinion on that, if that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so, and that's just because of where it kind of originated from. You know, the league never did Pride weekends. Some individual teams did Pride weeks. So when I first got to Manchester, we wore Pride jerseys in our pre-season because it was Manchester Pride at the time. I know Cardiff were very, very, very good with Pride, and Glasgow were very good with Pride before the kind of league-wide Pride kicked off. And from what I recall, it was my last year in Glasgow, we didn't make it to the playoffs, and they went down and with the Hockey is for Everyone banners and made their trip to Nottingham about, you know, LGBT inclusivity. And I think the league kind of looked at that and said, you know, this is something we need to be doing. I don't think it was ever really done as a kind of cash cow. I think the videos from all the guys around the league every year saying, you know, the kind of cliche comments that everyone kind of says everywhere. So no, I don't think it's cash cow. I do think it's. I mean, my personal opinion of Pride is and this is one of my friends who I've met through coming out. He says that hockey Pride is like having a parade before you've won the cup, and that's my personal view. And you know, you're celebrating inclusivity without actually having an inclusive sport. And I get that argument, but also I understand how important Pride is to LGBT people. You know, obviously not going to out anyone. I'd never ever do that. But you know, the number of fans and that messaged me saying, you know, this gave me the courage to come out, or this gave me the courage to talk to my parents, or introduce my partner to my parents. And you can just see how, you know, for some clubs it's the highest attended game all season. I mean, again, Glasgow, Cardiff, and Manchester, it's probably one of the highest attended games all season, and I think it's vitally important to have, especially from a fan's point of view. I don't think it's necessarily as important for me. I couldn't care less whether anyone likes me or dislikes me or disagrees with my lifestyle. It's my life. So yeah, I kind of get both sides, but I don't think the league have turned it into a cash cow. I think the right reasons are there, and I think that's the most important thing. I mean, it would be. I know I was talking to Luke about linking with Stonewall for Pride, and Stonewall very rarely link with leagues for Pride events. They kind of distance themselves from that kind of thing. So that was kind of an ongoing conversation that I think the league's still having, and I think it would be nice to see like a tweet or something saying, you know, this is the LGBT charity that was supporting for Pride Weekend from every team, and I think most teams did that this year. So it's all for the right reasons, and my kind of view on it is if it's for the right reasons, then it's a good thing. You know, Pride Month and Tesco putting up Pride banners doesn't change anything. So that's kind of where that tokenistic gesture kind of comes in. But I think our league especially is doing a very good job, and as long as they don't go the same way as the NHL, I think it will continue to do a good job.
One question I do want to ask, you mentioned about the interviews. Exactly how many different networks was in touch? Because in doing some research for this, you mentioned there was quite the number, but, you know, being interviewed North America, Australia, and mainland Europe, how many different ones did get in touch over the period of time?
It was definitely figures. I mean, it was. I don't want to seem too big-headed, but I mean, it was BBC, ITV, Sky Sports did 2, I think. I mean, BBC I ended up doing 4 or 5. CNN reached out, which is actually my favourite interview because it kind of went. The phone call I had with the guy was so lovely, and then what he wrote from my words was just exactly the way I wanted it to come across. NHL on NBC, NHL Network. I think the NHL Network one was live, which I think that was in between periods of an NHL game, so that was a bit of a strange one. And then I think the strangest one was a random Vancouver radio station. So I remember watching Knives Out with my family at home, and I had a phone call. I knew I had a phone call, and I knew I was going out, and it was Vancouver radio station. So that was a bit of a strange one. And I mean, and then the podcast. I mean, I know I'm very happy with my career, but by no means am I coming on podcasts to talk about hockey. So yeah, no, it's. I mean, I went on the 2 Ales and 1 Shed, I think it's called, and I know the guys very well that run the 4,000 Counting one, and obviously you guys as well. So yeah, I mean, there's always kind of something, and then like Pride Month, it kind of dies down, and then our Pride Week comes about, or Pride Month comes, and you know, I now do stuff for Stonewall as well because I'm one of their sports champions, and yeah, it's kind of time occupation. As far as I'm concerned, as long as people still want to talk to me about it, people are still, as long as I'm still wanting to be talked to, the conversation still needs to be had. And if the conversation still needs to be had, I'm one of two professional hockey players who are LGBT. I think it would be kind of me not to give up, you know, hour, 2 hours, 3 hours of my time to just kind of talk through what can be done, what's, you know, I don't think that, well.
Zach, that was quality, absolutely amazing, so thank you for that. Obviously, besides everything else, you're still a hockey player. You know, that's why you're on as well, first and foremost, because you're a hockey player, you're a good hockey player. Obviously, the season's not over. You know, we've got another, at least, weekend of hockey to look forward to in Manchester. Just a few questions on the Manchester thing then. Everyone knows that doesn't go to Manchester to watch games every week as a Storm fan. It's the kind of place you go there, you're like, oh, that poxy little rink. Talk to me about what it's like to be a home player in that rink, though, because obviously as an away fan, you hate it. I'm sure as an away player, you hate it. Coming as a guy that watched however many seasons in the BBT, I'm a bit of a hypocrite, don't get me wrong. Maybe I'm not a hockey snob, that I just think that Manchester is a horrible little place. But then it's your horrible little place, much like the BBT was when I watched games as a Cardiff fan at the time. And yeah, do you sort of find that that's an advantage playing there? Is it a rink that you grow to love, or would you rather play in an ideal world in a lighter facility in Manchester?
I've always loved Manchester. You know, when I was playing in the EPL, Phoenix were playing out of Altrincham, and I loved it then too. It's one of those rinks where, and Finney used to say this every time we went and played there, it's a rink where no one can hide. If you're scared of getting hit, or you're scared of that physical aspect of the game, you stick out like a sore thumb. And you know, it's like the Cardiff teams at the Big Blue Tent. I don't think it would be unfair of me to say that they were very physical teams. So I mean, it's put it this way: the recruitment process of bringing a new guy to Manchester is, you will love the city, you will love the lifestyle, you will love, you know, there's so many places to go visit on off days. You know, we're very fortunate that the majority of teams train 4 days a week. Sometimes we take the Wednesday off to kind of recover, and that's kind of the way that Finn has always worked. You know, he always says rest is a weapon. But his final line for every phone call recruiting a player is, the rink is absolute, but you will love it 2 weeks in. And you see that every year. You know, guys come in, they're picked up from the airport, and you know, I think this year the majority of guys flew into Gatwick or Heathrow, so they put on a coach to, you know, nice brand new coach to bring them up to Manchester. They go to the apartments. The apartments are lovely. This last couple of years, all the apartments have been downtown, right in the middle of Manchester. So you get to Manchester, you're in these lovely new apartments. You go out, you walk out the door, you're in the middle of Manchester, beautiful city, so much to do. Not to mention even just Manchester City and Manchester United, the sporting calibre in this city. And you turn up at the rink and the guys go, is this the training rink? Or is this where we play? And you kind of, every guy goes through that, and then you get on the ice, and it's just something. And I guess it's a style of recruitment as well. You know, you go for those guys that play that gritty game, that physical game. I don't think we've got anyone on our team this year that kind of shies away from that, and it just suits us. You know, we know that Cardiff want to come in and make beautiful plays coming over the blue line and backdoor passes and source passes and go top shelf. don't have the time and space to do that in Manchester. You have to play our way of hockey, which suits us down to a T. Because on our day, I think we play our style exceptionally well. I mean, you can't if you can't do that, you don't go to Belfast and win twice. You don't take Guildford to overtime twice and beat them 8-1 at home. So yeah, I mean, I've always loved playing in Manchester, and mainly for the reason that Finna says, you can't hide. If you're scared of getting hit, or you're timid going into corners, or you're shying away from that physical game, you will stick out. People will notice. So yeah, I mean, it forces other teams to come in and play our style. And we made playoffs a few weeks ago. We kind of got confirmed, and then we kind of entered that battle into 6th, 7th place with Nottingham. We kind of said, whoever we put, I think we could finish 6th to 8th at the time. So obviously Coventry are in no man's land somehow, 20 points above 6th and then 12 points or whatever behind 4th. So it was 6th to 8th, and we were looking at the standings, kind of going, we don't mind playing anyone. We've probably had one of, if not the best record against Guildford this year. We've beaten them 3 times, taken them to overtime another time. I know they pummeled us 9-2 recently. We've been to Belfast and won. We've played our last game against Sheffield and won. We'd beaten Cardiff the last time we played them on TV. And we were looking at the top 4 teams kind of going, whoever we play has to come here. And all 4 of those top 5 teams, I would say, like to play that free-flowing, almost European style of offensive hockey, which doesn't work in Manchester. Because even if you do make that beautiful source pass back door for a one-time, it's probably going to hop over a stick because the ice isn't very good. So it's you have to buy into that North American style of put the puck in deep, go and get it, work hard in the offensive zone, and generate chances. So I think looking at the teams, by no means to be fair anyone, like obviously you have to show Belfast respect. You have to show, in my opinion, Guildford respect. I mean, they've been phenomenal all year. I don't think anyone saw them finishing second, even with them running away with it earlier in the year. I would have loved for them to win the league just because it would have been a non-arena team, to be honest. But the only team that we really looked at was Coventry, because they're the only team that we haven't beaten this year. And if you look at how we did as a club last year, I don't think we beat Cardiff. I don't think we beat Belfast or Nottingham or there were 3, 4, 5 teams that we didn't beat all season, which is probably why we ended up in 9th. But yeah, it's kind of, we know that we play our style very well at home. We knew that we were having the first leg at home. And even a team like Belfast, you come into Manchester and you go 3 goals down early in the first, which is more than possible. That's the tie over, even for a team with the offensive, like they're so stacked offensively. That's a tough game to get back into. And Bescawani is a fantastic goalie, but he struggled in Manchester because of the different angles. And you're shooting from the top of the circles in Manchester. That's like shooting from the crease anywhere else. So your angles are different, and you're not expecting shots. And from the blue line, you're top of the circle, so that's a shot that could genuinely have a chance of going in. Whereas in Nottingham, you take a shot and you've got to wait 5 seconds for it to get to the net. So yeah, I mean, we're excited. I mean, the kind of tempo this week in practice has been probably the best it has been all year. I'm sure every other team is the same. Playoffs are what ice hockey players kind of live and breathe for. But no, we're excited. We know we've got the first game at home. We know we're playing Sheffield. We obviously know that they've got, I was talking on another podcast about those intangibles of playoffs. It being John Phillips last season for Sheffield is going to play a massive part. Of course it is. Fantastic player. He's probably had the best British ice hockey career. I hope Liam Kirk plays in the NHL, genuinely do. But so far, Jonah Phillips is kind of that standard that you hold yourself to. And, you know, I think the kind of show of respect from Glasgow and Cardiff this last weekend shows how much he is respected around the league. And, you know, there's very few players that we played against Sheffield in the Elite Series, and one of the imports cross-checked Jono in the back. And I remember Finner screaming at our player, called him over and said, "You do not do that to that player. To anyone else, not Jono." So again, like Finner, who has a reputation of these strong physical teams and, you know, no respect on the ice. We play our game, we play physical, we bang bodies, we fight, X, Y, Z. Even he had that respect to say, no, Jono's off limits. And that's obviously going to play a massive part. Still want to knock Sheffield out. Like, you know, I wish Jono could, I genuinely wish Jono could end his career with a club championship and a international championship. But of course, we're going to do everything we can to beat them. And we know for a fact that Sheffield don't like coming into Manchester. It's going to be an absolutely packed out rink in Manchester. I think there's about 5 tickets left. And it's not the biggest arena. Like, we don't get the most fans by any means. But the noise in that rink, because of the tin shed, it is deafening. So it's... Obviously, I think it's about 300 tickets off sold out in Sheffield. So it's I think it's definitely one to watch for an upset. I know I'm a Manchester Storm player. I know I have to say that, but probably for the first time in my career going into playoffs, probably the first time I actually believe it. Which you know, looking at our team from an outside perspective, we have a goalie who's in the top 4 of save percentage. We have, well, he was when I was commentating when I was injured. That might have changed because we did go to Belfast and get beat 9-1. We've got Anthony DeLuca, who's been here half season. He's top 5 goals. Jesper Orval's back from injury, and he's like, I think every team knows what he can do on his night. We've got, you know, I know everyone talks about the Conway-Goodwin line. We've got one of those lines ourselves in Johnson, Critchlow and Carter, who seem to always find themselves on the score sheet and are very rarely on the ice for a goal against. So, and then, you know, go into the D-men. Joe Hazeldine's one of the best young British players in the league. Finley Ulrich has been absolutely lights out since he's transitioned to D. I mean, the game on TV against Cardiff, I think he played 18, 19 minutes, and he was probably one of our best D-men, considering he's been a forward his entire career. That's and then, you know, you got the kind of league. He's been in the league so long, and Dallas Earhart, Zach Herman was our defenseman of the year, and he's been fantastic. And I'm pretty sure I'm missing some guys out, like Chase Harrison is a fantastic defensive D-man. And so, yeah, I mean, we look at our team and we kind of go, you know, we've got depth. We've got, you know, I was talking again to some of the guys, and come playoffs, it's different. You can't really put your finger on why, but it's just different. And, you know, how many times, and, you know, we've all watched the Stanley Cup playoffs. How many times is it a 4th line guy that scores 2 goals to win the Stanley Cup? You know, and it's that depth in scoring that you need come playoffs. And when I look at our team, I think we're one of the teams that has that. I mean, I know that Conway-Goodwin line is immense. There's no, I mean, I think Conway's 10 points clear of anyone else. And then Goodwin's 3rd. So it is immense, but that's also the beauty of a 2-game aggregate. You take one night off, or, you know, you have, I think every team has 2 D-men who are good enough to shut a line down for a game. And if they do their job for 2 nights, you're asking a lot of a few of lines in Belfast that haven't been putting up the numbers other teams have. So we're excited.
Yeah.
We kind of wanted Sheffield. Don't know if that's going to come back to bite me. But obviously, from a club perspective, we don't particularly like them. They don't particularly like us. We're kind of the loud and noisy neighbours. But yeah, I mean, we're excited. We're really excited for a sold out building in Manchester, and we kind of said it when we played Nottingham on Saturday. They were sold out for that last game of the season, and we said it on the bench and in the dressing room. We're here to spoil the party. We don't care. You can sell out your building. We're still going to come and beat you. So that's kind of where we are. We kind of want to be that Coventry Blaze that finished 8th and somehow won the playoffs.
I think it's a perfect tie. Let's be fair. There's this War of the Roses thing, this Yorkshire, Lancashire thing that goes on in any sport. And my missus is a Sheffield fan, so I've kind of got a dog in the fight anyway, to be fair. So I kind of have different opinions on Sheffield than I may have had many years ago, to be honest with you. So perhaps I'm a little bit biased in who I want to win the tie. But I think, like you said, your rink, I think, especially having the first game at home, is I think, key. If you're Sheffield going into that rink, if you can keep within a goal, maybe even 2, taking it back home, you'd like to think they'd be fairly confident. So I think the whole tie depends on what you do in that first game. It's not saying you can't go win in Sheffield, but let's be honest, no player likes, I'm sure, to play in that rink. As you say, the way that the puck is flying around everywhere, it's on top of you, left, right and centre. When you've been playing on the big Olympic pad and then you play in Manchester, it's a totally different game. So you think that home leg first is an advantage, do you think, or would you rather come back and play them at home second?
I think it's one of those where kind of have to wait and see the result. I mean, I think the best example of that is England in the Euros. Everyone criticised Gareth Southgate for bringing on Rashford and Sancho because they missed the penalties. But if they score the penalties, he's a genius. So I think it's one of those where you kind of have to wait to see what happens. I think if Sheffield lose the tie, they'll probably say, why didn't we play at home first? If they win the tie, they'll probably say, oh, it was great to play away first. So it's one of those where it's kind of hindsight is 2020. I don't think it really matters, to be honest. I mean, you've seen over the years some crazy scorelines have been overturned. I think Manchester won 5-1 against Fife and then lost 6-1 the next night at home. So, it's, I don't think it particularly matters. I think it does give us a slight edge. I think especially, and this is not meant as any disrespect to Sheffield at all. It's, they haven't had the best of seasons from their point of view. They were out of the league title, I think, 3 or 4 weeks ago and haven't been performing to their standards, or their expected standards anyway. So yeah, I think it kind of gives us the edge because if, obviously we're confident at home, every team is, and if we can get a good result, I think the psychological effect that might have on a team that's kind of not had much to play for recently. They kind of, I know they lost to Cardiff, but they were solidified in third before that. So yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting. I mean, obviously, I think we can win at home. I do think we can win in Sheffield. It's obviously a very tough building to go to, especially sold out. But yeah, I mean, that psychological effect of us winning that first leg might play a part. It might not. It might have the opposite effect. We might win that game by 3 goals and they turn around and go, oh well, payback time tonight. So it's one of those where it's kind of hindsight is 2020. You can't really, it takes me back to my last year in Glasgow. We pulled Guildford in playoffs, and we chose to play away in Guildford first. We were 2-0 up and with about 2 minutes left, and somehow left 2-2. And then we went home and lost 5-0 the next night. So obviously that's the wrong decision. But if we'd gone and drawn 2-2 and then won 5-0 the next night, well, that's the best decision anyone could have made. Absolutely, yeah, brilliant idea to play the second leg at home. So I think it's one of those where you kind of can't really. I mean, it shows that we had announced that our home game was on the Friday before we knew who we were playing. So I don't think teams really take that into account. I mean, it's a 2-game aggregate. Anything can happen. Guys can get suspended, hurt, just thrown off their game on that Friday. And, some guys will turn up who haven't all year because they're just playoff players. And some guys who have turned up all year won't because it's playoffs. And it's just, that's kind of the beauty of playoffs. Really, it's it gives those guys who maybe haven't had their praises sung all year that opportunity to go out and become a hero. I mean, I'll give Ross Venus a shout out, who expected him to score the game-winning goal at Nottingham playoff weekend. Out of that team in Coventry, he was pretty low down the list of the guys that was going to score the game-winning goal.
Yeah, big shout out to Ross.
I love Ross. I get on with him really well. He's
it's a shame that it's his final elite league year. So Zach, I'll put you on the spot. Who the final four for the weekend? Who's it going to be?
Belfast. I think Belfast, Guildford, just Coventry and Manchester.
That's worse predicting than I do. That is absolute travesty.
Well, Coventry have played Cardiff 10 times this year because of the cup.
Oh, they played 50 times a season, to be fair.
Been a few times, mate.
How many times have Cardiff beaten Coventry?
Scotty and I, to be fair, always joke about me being a rubbish, and Dave, me a rubbish predictor. I would probably go with one of your predictions of the four. So that probably means I'm really shit. And you're probably going to be right all in all your four predictions, to be fair, but we'll see what happens.
I think
I like yours, Zach, to be fair, so I'm going for it.
That capability of blowing a team out, I don't think Cardiff have this year. I think Coventry could genuinely go and win a game 6-1, even in playoffs. I don't think Cardiff have that capability. And I think Cardiff are very similar to Belfast in the fact that they rely, a lot of their scoring comes from Cox Sanford Martin. Whereas the Blaze is spread over more lines, which means that, Coventry can turn around and go, okay, we're going to have Halbert and Clement, who are both very good defensively, shut down that Cox Sanford line all weekend. And yeah, they might do a job, they might not, but that's kind of what I'm getting at. That when playoffs comes around, you as a player, that shot block that you might not have gone for halfway through the year, you are throwing yourself full sail at that puck to stop it going anywhere near your goal. And that kind of takes away from, how many playoff games do you watch in the EIHL? It's just boring because there aren't any shots on net. And if they are, they're stepping over the line and floating one in because that's all that you can get. So I think, the league's getting more and more offensively talented. That's for sure. But the playoffs will always remain a kind of defensive battle because it's the way that hockey players are kind of brought up. Do whatever you want in the season. Playoff time comes, that's when you turn up and play. And I'm genuinely not sure about Nottingham and Guildford. I think that could go either way.
Yeah.
I know they played well against each other. Both teams have picked up results, but I just think, again, Guildford have so much firepower. And Nottingham, they will be disappointed if we beat them on Saturday. And, they've shown kind of a mental fragility all season. And that's kind of what we're playing on with Sheffield. They've not really had much to play for recently. Obviously, the John Phillips retiring is a massive talking point, but we think we're a better team than that. It's like as simple as that. We just think we're better than they are, and we want to show that we're better than they are.
Well, I've gone Belfast, obviously, because you expect Belfast to beat Glasgow handsomely. I've gone you guys to get beat by Sheffield. Nottingham, I got a funny feeling as well. I'm not sure. Logic is to suggest Guildford should wipe them out based upon recent form. I wonder whether a little bit of post-season kind of, being a bit gutted, obviously they lost the league. And Nottingham, a playoff team, sometimes you can't say they're always a playoff team because they've won it 5 times in 20 years. So they're crap more than they're good, really. I just think that Cardiff and Belfast Blaze will be a Cardiff over the 2 legs, but we shall see. But some controversial choices there, I think.
Yeah, I think with Guildford, I think obviously they'll be hugely disappointed with not just losing in Belfast, but the way they lost. I don't think anyone kind of expected that to be a blowout. considering the league title was hanging on a thread. But I think the fact that they went home and beat Fife, who needed to win to make playoffs, 5-0, kind of shows that they've kind of got that out of their system, and whether that was their frustration from the night before or they wanted to show that, you know, they still got something to play for. And Guildford are just another team that's capable of turning up and blowing teams out. And I think the only 2 teams really, well, 3 now, capable of doing that are Belfast, Coventry and Guildford.
I've got to be honest, from a Sheffield perspective, I'm actually quite happy with playing in Manchester first, because I feel that the emotion from Jono's last home game going into the second leg would actually detract from what is both sides are getting to make the Final Four. And I agree with you. There's a bit of a fragile status in Sheffield. You know, we can't hide from it. But I'm happy that we're actually going to Manchester first. But because I think that home game will, I believe, could be wrong, hope I'm not, will pull us through the cross and make us the Final Four. But it is the tie. You know, that could be the upset. If Coventry beat Cardiff, I wouldn't call it as upset. And I say that respectfully to Manchester.
No. I
do think it could be one. You know, you could 3-4 goal lead in the first leg.
Yeah.
That'll make Saturday night very interesting. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point. I think the emotions, like these are the intangibles that you don't know anything about, because, you know, when was the last time that one of the best British hockey players of all time announced his retirement? You know, so it's kind of uncharted ground. But I know from, you know, I talked to DeLuca after his first game back in Sheffield, and he said, you know, the emotion of being back in Sheffield, he just couldn't play. You know, he couldn't do anything because he was just so overwhelmed with emotion. And, you know, that's just, he did play, I think, 4 or 5 years in Sheffield, and he was a fan favourite, certainly. So, but that emotion for Jono is going to be tenfold, 100-fold. You know, it's not just he's not just back in Sheffield. It is the last time he will ever play club hockey, potentially, definitely on home ice. So I think, you know, obviously I genuinely hope that Jono has a lights out weekend. I genuinely hope that he shows that he still has it, because he does. You know, he's not retiring at the end of his career where he's struggling to keep up. He's still quicker than anyone else on the ice.
He's got quicker with age.
Yeah. But I genuinely hope he has a fantastic weekend. But that kind of emotion side of things is, you know, no, you don't know how you're going to handle it until you have to handle it. And, you know, you've got other guys there that have played with Jono for 5-6 years. I don't. Dowdy's probably been there with Jono for 10 years now, and same with David Phillips, who's 6, 7, 8 years. And there's, like I said, you don't know how those players are going to handle that emotion until they're there in the moment. And for us, you know, we kind of enjoy like being the party poopers, turning up to the party and ruining the party. And yeah, I mean, for us, we won't have to deal with that emotion. Obviously, we'll have to deal with the crowd noise and how loud it's going to be, because I'm sure it will be deafening like it will be in Manchester. But we don't have to deal with that emotional aspect of playing. You know, this could be our teammates' last ever game. That is very emotional, and I've played on teams where that's happened before, and we've absolutely shit the bed, for want of a better term. So I think it does. It will play a massive part. There's absolutely no doubt, and it should play a massive part, because Jono is a massive. Like he epitomises British ice hockey, how professional he's been. I mean, he's been a mainstay. You know, imports come and go, but Jono Phillips, you know, you never know. This I tried to sum this up to one of the new guys this year, and I think what I ended up saying was, you know, teams come and go, imports come and go, but one thing you can know for sure is Jono Phillips will be captain of the Sheffield Steelers.
Absolutely.
And that's going to change, and that is massive. So I don't know how much of a part that's going to play. I don't know if it will play a part, or it'll make Sheffield play better, or it'll make them play worse because of the nerves, or you'll only really find out that once we're on the ice, and that's the thing. And it's when players play with that extra emotion, mistakes are made. You do things that you never normally would do. You might make a bad hit or a bad decision that leads to a goal, or both ways. And that's kind of the intangibles you just don't know until you're on the ice. And for me personally, win or lose, I am absolutely delighted that I get to play against Jono, especially as his last home game in Sheffield, because I've said this to our coaches and captaincy group already. Win or lose this playoff series, we are giving Jono his dues. We are going up to him and congratulating him on an absolutely fantastic career, and that's not dependent on whether we win or lose. That is 100% happening because he's a guy that deserves it. So for me personally, I'm delighted to play against Sheffield because of that. The club is obviously delighted to play against Sheffield because we were always going to sell out against Sheffield, playing them in the playoffs. So no, I think there's just a really excited buzz. I've gone into playoff series before with Glasgow, and it was kind of nervous energy, and this year it just kind of seems different. It's just excitement, and we can't wait to get going. So I think it'll be very interesting. I don't think it will be. I mean, we could sit here and make predictions about how it's going to go all night into tomorrow night, and I don't think any of us will get it absolutely spot on. So I'm sure Manchester will do something geared towards Jono before the game to kind of celebrate him as well. I hope they do, because again, he's a guy that deserves it. And like I said, I hope he plays absolutely lights out. But I genuinely believe that we will win.
I won't lie, you summed up spot on in terms of just the amount of things that could go right, wrong. You never know. Like you say, until the handshakes on Saturday, that's the only time anybody will know how that tie. And in fairness, the other ties that finish on the Sunday, because like you say, anything could happen. And I'm looking at the time, and I think we should wrap this up. But we could probably talk other stuff. We may have to get you on in a few months' time, and for part 3, 4 depends on how we break this one up. But Zach, thank you ever so much for your time. It's been fantastic to listen to the stories and everything you said. John, Scott, we've done a few specials already. I can see this being up there with the best ones.
This is the best, hands down. He speaks so well. Genuinely, I'm just sitting thinking I could spend all night listening to this guy speak. Genuinely, and normally we'd be done an hour ago, and it's just feels like we could just keep going. And I'm sure Zach probably would. So Zach, you've been absolutely tremendous. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, and you speak so clearly and so well, and what's the word? Eloquently. Hockey players are meant to be thick, to be fair, aren't they? Yeah. They're meant to all be nothing going on between the ears, and you're coming along like some kind of professor or something.
I'm from
Speaks properly. That is true. We are posh,
That's true. Although Zach, you did struggle with Talan Ashinsky. When you were on comms, you were like, I don't know this guy's name.
Yeah, I gave it a shot. I was reading. I was like, I have no idea how to say this name. And then I think he scored, didn't he?
Yeah, he got a point. Yeah, and you were like, it's yeah. But no.
And then I tried to say his name. I think I said on the comms, I was like, I butchered this. Sorry.
No, you were good.
And he got a penalty straight after, and I was like, I'm not trying.
Yeah, he always gets a penalty. 2 minutes.
I'm not
every game. No, mate. Zach, brilliant, mate. I wish you all the well in the playoffs, and look forward to speaking to you again.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you for having me. It's been really fun.
No, the fun's been so. That's it for this special edition of the 303 podcast.